Today's media conference is all about yet another step in the evolution of the Toronto Symphony, and it is Peter Ungen's vision and creativity that powers this evolution. I'm sure you will be as excited as I am to hear the wonderful performances, stellar guest artists, and special festivals for the upcoming season that have become a hallmark of Peter's tenure for all of us to enjoy. The Board of Directors is deeply committed to ensuring not only that Peter's vision can continue to unfold and provide us with the world's greatest music, but it builds on the quality, creativity, and history of this well-loved Canadian institution, such that it continues to prosper and flourish as one of the world's finest orchestras. As chair, I feel we have a responsibility to pave the way for our maestro musicians so that the remarkable renaissance that has taken place over the past several years can be sustained. The Board of Directors, like the orchestra, is becoming stronger with each passing season. We share and rejoice in the enthusiasm of our musicians on stage. We want to ensure that fundraising revenues are strong so that Peter's vision can unfold and that the momentum we have seen over the past few years continues to grow. And the TSO's time has come for us to capture our share of the philanthropic spirit that has benefited so many other wonderful projects in this city. And we join with other institutions in the cultural renaissance that Toronto is experiencing. The board's work, supported by CEO Andrew Shaw and Senior Vice President of Development Ginny Medlin Green, has made it its number one priority to increase the fundraising capacity of the Toronto Symphony to ensure the financial health of the orchestra over the long term. We have listened very attentively and constructively to our stakeholders, and that for us to grow and flourish, we do so alongside a sound financial plan. The results have been nothing short of wonderful. Over $15 million has been raised in the past 18 months to both sustain operations and grow the Toronto Symphony Foundation. And we have the generosity of people like Billy Wilder, who is with us today. Thank you, Billy. Cheryl and David Carr, to thank for their huge part in our recent successes. And we also recently received a further $1 million anonymous donation from one of our patrons. Now, this important donor has also come forward with a year-end challenge for us. For every dollar that the TSO improves its year-end position relative to budget, this anonymous patron will match the improvement dollar for dollar. The board and the staff of the orchestra are focused on making this challenge a success and helping the organization achieve a surplus again this year. We also have our corporate sponsors to thank, and I'm pleased to say that the list is in fact rather long, and we have posters in the lobby that acknowledge our sponsors. But I would particularly like to thank our platinum level sponsors, AIM Trimark, sponsor of the Mozart Festival, and Tippett Richardson, our concert season sponsor. And one final announcement, and a very good one. Some great news to share with you today. The Bank of Montreal has become our new sponsor of the Conductor's Podium for a 3-year period beginning in the new season. And a special thank you to Nada Ristich from the bank, who's here with us today. Thank you to all our sponsors for their generosity and commitment. I would like now to introduce Andrew Shaw, President and CEO of the Toronto Symphony, who is going to make a special announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And to each and every one of you, thank you for being an essential part of this announcement and celebration of the 2007-2008 2008 season of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. The 2007-2008 season is the fourth season under the guidance of our maestro, Peter Ungen. Over the last 3 seasons, we have all been witness to the inspiration of the orchestra, the engagement of the community, arising from the artistic leadership provided by our maestro. And now, by way of turning this afternoon's proceedings over to Peter, I am delighted to announce that Peter's 4-year contract ending with the 2007-2008 season has been extended for another 4 years through the 2011-2012.
You don't do this alone, you know. There's a big support system out there, and I'll get to that. An orchestra runs with 2 kinds of energy, really. There's the one that we create as the people who work behind the scenes and on the stage. That is the wonderful members of the orchestra who, every time I stand here, I want you all to know how deeply grateful I am for their artistry and their commitment, the members of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. There's also an incredibly hard-working administration behind this scene, as we all are aware. And these are very, very long hours, and they're challenging jobs. The reward, of course, is the music, it's the camaraderie, and it's the atmosphere that we all try to create to make it a joy to be here. And then there's the other side. There's the real support system. And that, of course, is the audience. And I have to say that we are blessed and so fortunate in this town to have a wonderful, cultured, listening audience that is growing, it seems, by the week. And that is terribly important to all of us. And then there is the patronage side of the support system, without whom none of this would happen. And we have witnessed today already the generosity of Billy Wilder, of our sponsors. I'm delighted about the Bank of Montreal. I hope Toronto Dominion Bank is helping the Montreal Symphony. There's our volunteer committee. There are so many people who make such an enormous difference who work for our volunteer committee. Our music directors circle, our incredibly generous patrons, our Maestros Club, so generous. These are the elements that really make all of this possible. And with it, we do so many different things. I don't know about you, but I couldn't get to the building today because there were so many school buses. It was a little bit earlier, perhaps. But every single year, we play for 70,000 school children in this building. 70,000 school children hear the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, and as part of outreach, there are an additional 40,000 that are touched by the artistry of our members. And this is such an important aspect of what we do, and it's such an important aspect of the future. And talking of the future, the Soundcheck program, which began about 4 or 5 years ago, is now numbered. That's the program that has 15 to 29-year-olds registered on the internet, and an incredibly active program. The number now of registered members is 28,000, anticipated to grow to above 30,000 within the next few months. So all of this creates a wonderful atmosphere in a city that anyway is experiencing such cultural growth. I've almost never seen anything like it. And here we are at the at the middle of a season, at the beginning of which we had the tremendous ring cycle in the new opera house, and whenever we walked past the Rome or the AGO or the conservatory, we just wait in great anticipation for the opening of these magnificent spaces, and we are so privileged, I think, to be living in this city at this exciting time. Now, on the other end of the season, of course, there's a new festival that is about to be launched, the Luminato Festival. And I'm delighted that the Toronto Symphony will be taking part in that festival with 3 performances of a very, very unimportant piece written, now you're wondering, written by my cousin, whose name is Eric Idle. Doesn't ring a bell. Okay, fine. This piece is called Not the Messiah and is a lot of fun, very, very funny, nowhere near as good as Handel, and not intended to be. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that, and the whole Luminato Festival, I'm sure that all of us here will be paying great attention to all of those activities as they begin end of May and continue for about 10 days. Now, I don't want this to sound like an infomercial, and it can get very dull when I start talking about every single program that we've planned. And frankly, I don't really know where to start or where to end. So just start to put your hands up when you're getting really bored, okay? But I thought I would just start at the beginning, because we begin with Carmina Burana, a piece that has always been popular and for very good reason throughout the world, really. And we decided that that would be a great way to kick off the season. One of the new things that we're doing this season is a series we're calling Great Performance. That's not to suggest, by the way, that any of the other performances are less than great. It's always a bit of a problem when you do a series like that. But it's a very exciting series, and it features 3 great artists. Anne-Sophie Mutter, who hasn't been here for many years, playing the Brahms Concerto, Lang Lang, playing Beethoven 1, and Yo-Yo Ma, who will return with Mstislav Rostropovich conducting Shostakovich's First Concerto, which was written for Rostropovich. So that'll be a very, very exciting series. There are other great artists coming to us. Vadim Repin will play Prokofiev's Second Concerto with Thomas Dausgaard, one of our favorites, who was just here last week doing the complete Daphnis. And then we will have Yevgeny Kissin playing Brahms' First Concerto with Andrew Davis conducting, and the other Brahms, the second Brahms, will be played by Stephen Kovacevic, who used to be called Stephen Bishop in a former life, a wonderful artist, and I'm not sure that this isn't the first time, certainly the first time in a very long time that he's been with the Toronto Symphony, so we're excited about that. I'm also thrilled that 3 of my 3 predecessors, actually, 3 prior maestros, are all appearing this season. Andrew Davis will come twice, Gunther Herbig will come to do Schubert 9, and after quite a few years, I'm delighted that Jukka-Pekka Saraste will come and do Mahler 9. So that's a very exciting turn of events. Other little highlights, Emmanuel Ax will be here. We all love Manny Ax. He'll be doing Beethoven 4. He was, of course, one of the people featured in 5 Days in September, the film that was made 2.5 years ago now, and which I'm pleased to tell you is out on DVD and is being made into a 35mm film to be released gradually over the next few months throughout the North American market, hopefully. So that's good news for the film. But Manny will be playing Beethoven 4. Charles Dutoit is returning with the Symphonie Fantastique. And when I talk about the orchestra with these positive terms, I always want to remind everybody how often I get phone calls or messages from guest conductors who leave Toronto and make absolutely sure that I know how much they appreciated the week they had with the symphony. How, for example, Gian-Andrea Noceda said that Scheherazade, the orchestra, was so malleable, he got exactly the interpretation he was looking for. Charles Dutoit loved being here so much, he said, I'll come back every season. And this happens so frequently. And it's really, it gives me such pleasure, it's such an honor to be in this position when you know that you can, as it were, lend your orchestra for a week to somebody who will feel at the end of that week that they experienced something very special and magical and cooperative. Charles Dutoit will be here. I'm going to mention a few of the pieces that I'm conducting just because it's exciting and somewhat new for us in terms of what I've been doing here recently. The 7th Shostakovich, the Leningrad, will be doing in a program contrasted with the Britten Violin Concerto, which will be played by Janine Janssen, a wonderful young violinist from Holland who played Shostakovich's second here just a few months ago. And that is truly one of the great masterpieces, the Britten Violin Concerto of the 20th century, and quite rarely played. Also in the concert with Manny, we'll be doing Bruckner 4, an absolutely marvellous piece. People tend to be a little afraid of Bruckner, but they certainly should not be. It's music of enormous power, spirituality and nobility, and I'm thrilled to be doing that. We'll also be doing Mahler's 4th, again, with a piece of wonderful piece, Les Illuminations of Benjamin Britten, with Barbara Hannigan, one of our great Canadian sopranos. We're doing an exchange this coming season with the Detroit Symphony. As many of you may know, I'm the artistic advisor. I'm helping out a neighbour, as it were, while they don't have a music director and they're involved in a search. And we've decided it would be wonderful to have the Detroit Symphony come to Toronto and the Toronto Symphony go to Detroit, where they also have a magnificent concert hall, very different in its magnificence from ours. It was built probably around the turn of the century, about 1900. So Detroit Symphony will be coming here, and our soloist, I'm delighted to say, will be Anton Querti, playing the Emperor Concerto. So there's a few things. It happens that in this city where we have, how many Chinatowns? 5? I don't know, 6. We have a wonderful presence of Chinese musicians. First of all, composer Chen Yi will be featured, but also among our own, Tang Li, our principal violist, will be playing. Ji Yong, who's a wonderful pianist who I was just appalled to find out was born on the same day as my daughter. You know how that happens. It's like the first time you find out that your dentist is younger than you. It's that shock. And then Lang Lang, I've already mentioned, and Yundi Lee, who will be playing Tchaikovsky first, who's another magnificent star. We also have many soloists from the TSO. I've already mentioned Tang, but there are 7 soloists from our own orchestra. Andrew McCandless, our principal trumpet, Neil Deland, our new principal horn, Jacques Israelovich, our concertmaster, of course, Jeffrey Beecher, our new principal bass player, Sarah Jeffrey, who will be playing with Itzhak Perlman, who, as many of you know, was my violin teacher way back when. Sarah's our principal oboist, and Joaquin Valdepeñas, our wonderful clarinetist. So it's very exciting that we can present so many of our own artists at the front of our stage. Now, I always like to get to the festivals, and we have sort of 3 festivals. Of course, we have our Mozart Festival, which has been just a wonderful experience for all of us. Now, it's going to be Mozart at 2:52. By the way, this really wasn't my idea to go this far. I said 2:49 is cute, and 2:50 is obvious. And if you insist on 2:51, okay, but you know, people like it. So, so 2:52, and it features 3 programs. One with Karina Gauvin, who many of you may remember on the 250th birthday took part in the Mozart Letters program. She's a wonderful singer and a great actress as well. And then we feature Ingrid Flitter, who's a great pianist, up and coming, also will be debuting with the Toronto Symphony in the second program. And the third one is with Ji Young, who I mentioned, who's this very young, my son type of age, and Jeffrey Beecher, our bass player, and a very exciting bass who I'm not sure has ever been heard in this country, Jonathan Lemalu. I worked with him at the Barbican about 2 years ago, and he is a really extraordinary singer. So that's our Mozart Festival, briefly outlined. The end of the season, we were working with programs, and this is quite an adventure, putting together a season. You never quite know what's going to become obvious to you suddenly. And over these 3 programs, we were playing with various pieces of repertoire and various solos, and we suddenly realized that there was a compelling argument for juxtaposing great Russian literature with great American literature. And we've come up with a Russian-American festival, sort of pre, during, and post-Cold War festival. And you'll see it, of course, you have all the material. But the first program will start with the Candide Overture, because it's one of those great popular American pieces that will bring us all into a total comfort zone. Then the Enrico Dindo is a fantastic cellist who played Shostakovich first and second concerto during our Shostakovich festival last season. Will play the Prokofiev Sinfonia Concertante, rather rarely performed, massive work, important work of the 20th century. And then, in the second half, John Coriolano, who wrote The Red Violin, for those of you who remember the film, we will do his second symphony, which is for string orchestra. It began life as a string quartet, actually. It was premiered in the final concert of the Cleveland Quartet's career. And he then orchestrated it and changed it significantly. Well, I will tell you, I consider it one of the great works that's been written in the last 10 years, and I think it'll be very, very exciting to hear that work. The second program begins with Aaron Kernis's Musica Celestis, very beautiful piece, and then Jacques Israelovich will play the Joan Tower Violin Concerto, and we finish with Tchaikovsky's first symphony, Winter Dreams. And the third program, which really is almost the closing of the season, except for the last night of the proms with Bran Tovey, which we all look forward to. But the final on the Russian-American is Shostakovich's T for Two, followed by the Gershwin Piano Concerto featuring Jean-Yves Thibaudet, great French pianist who has a wonderful feeling for Gershwin. And then Romeo and Juliet of Prokofiev. So this is a very kind of focused experience of juxtaposing these 2 nations' music. One of the most important things I ever want to talk about is what we're doing with music of today. And we will now, in a couple of weeks, be starting our 3rd New Creations Festival, but I'm here to talk about the 4th one. Sometime in the mid-80s, I was at a festival called Ojai in California, and Olivier Messiaen was witnessing a rehearsal, and I had a moment to go and have a conversation with him. As you are probably aware, when in a concentration camp, Messiaen wrote the Quartet for the End of Time, but he never wrote a string quartet. And at that time, there was still hope that he might. So I had this wonderful conversation with him, in which I asked him if he would write a string quartet. The first thing he said was, sans piano, without a piano. And as I thought, I realized that perhaps he'd never written any piece that didn't have some kind of keyboard in it. And so I immediately changed my mind and said, no, you can write a piano quintet if you prefer. He was just an extraordinarily spiritual person to be around, and we had a wonderful conversation, and I never forgot it. Unfortunately, he was in such demand that this piece never came to fruition. His 100th birthday would have been this coming year, 2008, and so we decided to celebrate in the New Creations Messiaen and the keyboard. And various things came to my mind for various reasons, but you will see the programs, but each one features a piece, or even 2, of Messiaen, and each one features a Canadian piece. And then there is also a piece of Esa-Pekka Salonen, the piano concerto, which will be a Canadian premiere, and Philip Glass harpsichord concerto. But interestingly, I tried to find every imaginable kind of keyboard. Well, not quite, but some ones you wouldn't expect. Malcolm Forsyth has written an accordion concerto. Wonderful piece. So the first program features these 2 pieces of Messiaen, the Forsyth accordion concerto, and ends with Esa-Pekka Salonen's piano concerto, which, by the way, was premiered last week and enormously successful. Esa-Pekka Salonen is a very close friend of Jukka-Pekka Saraste, and is the music director of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, apart from being a very, very fine composer. So that's the first program. The second one begins with the Philip Glass harpsichord concerto and then continues with Jeffrey Ryan, a fine Canadian composer, in his concerto for piano trio and orchestra, which is one of our commissions. And then we'll end with the Messiaen Trois Petites Liturgies de la Présence Divine, a very, very beautiful, profound piece in which Peter Serkin will be featured. And the final program is the Jacques Hétu Organ Symphony, and then the Toronto Symphony, which Toronto Symphony has actually played many times in its illustrious career, including a wonderful recording, one of the early recordings of Toronto with Seiji Ozawa. So that is our very exciting New Creations Festival. We feature 8 Canadian composers during the season. Harry Friedman, who sadly passed away in the last year or so, a wonderful man. Alexina Louis, Godfrey Rideout, who used to actually, apart from being a wonderful composer, was a program annotator here. Gary Kulasher, True Color of the Sky. Gary, who is our composer advisor and has been so valuable, continues to be so valuable in discussing the activities we do around new music. Ray Ludica, Tales of the Netsilik, a piece that I believe we commissioned. It'll be the second performance of that piece. It's probably 10 or 12 years ago that he wrote it, and he, by the way, is our associate principal clarinetist as well. The Martin Forsyth piece I mentioned, the Jeffrey Ryan and the Jacques Hétu. We also have 2 composers in residence who are young composers, Abigail Richardson, Andrew Staniland. Now these 2 composers, it's been wonderful to have them around. They come to all of the meetings that we get involved with, planning programs, anything that they like to come to, they come to. Rehearsals, they can meet other composers that they come in with the New Creations Festival. We are available to sit down with them as they write their scores and discuss what might be changed, what might work better another way. And they've been really a wonderful presence and will continue to be here next year. Other contemporary pieces, there are also 8 others. The Guillaume Connaissant piece, which Stéphane Deneuve will conduct. Deneuve did a beautiful piece by Connaissant last time he was here. This is also a Toronto Symphony commission. There are actually a couple of pieces by Joan Tower. Magnus Lindberg, who is another good friend of Jukka-Pekka's, and in fact that his piece will be done in the first half of the Mahler 9 program. Chen Yi I'd already mentioned, Esa-Pekka I mentioned, Philip Glass, John Coriolano, Aaron J. Kernis. So there's plenty of music of our time for us to enjoy as well. Now, I could go on, there's so many other things that we do, but I know that many of you may have questions, and I'm delighted to answer those questions at this point. I think it's a beautiful season. It's been very exciting. As always, I want to thank Loie Fallis for the incredible job she does, and her assistants, Molly and Stephanie. This takes, you can't imagine how complicated it is to put this kind of a season together. I would just want to thank them. Are there any plans to bring the Israel Philharmonic here? Yeah. I think the person to ask that would be Charlie Cutts. We don't really present other orchestras in the hall, but I think it would be a wonderful thing if they came. I think they have been here in the past, actually. But we have to have high aspirations, because the people building condos around here certainly have high aspirations. And there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't take this orchestra to Europe, to the Far East, make recordings, and be a real presence as we all plan to be, and already are to a very large degree. But we all have to believe in the potential for growth and understand the need for it. And as you all know, I'm completely committed to making all of these things happen, and there are many aspects to making that happen. And I want to thank you all for being here today.